Well, welcome everybody. Lovely to see you all this morning. Thank you all for taking this time just to learn a bit more about mental health in the workplace and what you guys can do perhaps a little bit differently at work to help you with understanding how to support your teams, how to support your staff with their mental health. So a little introduction to me before we get into the depths of the content today. So I'm Jess. I run my own coaching practice. I'm a qualified coach and neuro-linguistic programming master practitioner. That is such a mouthful. It always is. I run my own coaching practice, which essentially means that I work with individuals to help them build their confidence, their resilience, their mindset, explore their professional careers, professional options. I support them in both their professional and their personal lives, and quite often we cross those over. I coach in various different sort of settings. I work with a couple of community interest companies where I work in a prison. I also work in a pupil referral unit in London. This really has helped me to kind of explore how coaching can help lots of different people from lots of different backgrounds in lots of different positions. And also from a mental health perspective, it's helped me to kind of discover more about signs and symptoms of mental health, and how people experience mental health in different forms, in different ways. So alongside this, I am a mental health first aid instructor. Some of you might have known me from that world, from that area. I deliver courses that are accredited by Mental Health First Aid England to help leaders and managers understand how to have conversations with their staff if they're experiencing poor mental health, and actually how to support them in getting that initial support, that initial help. So that's kind of the mental health side of things from me. So really, myself and Tim wanted to just bring something to you today that would be really beneficial to get you guys to think about what mental health in the workplace is, particularly with the times that we're going through at the moment. It's something that's coming to the forefront of all our perspectives. It's something that we need to be speaking about. It's something that we need to be having conversations about, because there's so many people that do need that level of support who might not have needed it previously. So we'll be looking at mental health. We'll be looking at how you can spot some of those signs and symptoms, what support is out there, how you can support them, and things that you can do differently as a leader, as a manager, to support your team, support your staff. So we will start off by thinking about what mental health in the workplace is. So what do you think we mean by the term mental health? What do we think that is? Feel free to use the chat box. Feel free to unmute yourself if you would prefer. What do we think mental health actually is?
So it's making sure that people are fit and in the right mindset to be able to, I suppose, carry out their day-to-day life, and obviously from a work perspective as well.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, absolutely. So able to carry out their day-to-day life, able to manage their workload, manage work day-to-day life as well. Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Anything else? I can't bring up my chat, so I can't unfortunately see if there's any answers in there, I'm afraid. If we've got any in there, Tim, feel free just to unmute yourself and add any of those in. But yeah, essentially it's about how we cope with those day-to-day, our day-to-day lives, whether that's from a personal perspective, whether that's from a professional perspective, how we cope with the ups and downs of life. And actually we've got a definition here from the World Health Organization. So mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which every individual realises his or her potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to her or his community. So I suppose for me that definition is really when mental health is good. So when mental health is in that great place, we're able to do these things quite easily. For me, it's also about our connection between our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviour as well. The way that we think and the way that we feel will impact the way that we behave. So our mental health is around all of that there. And I suppose we need to start thinking about mental health on that same part as physical health. You know, we speak quite frequently about our physical health. We know what to do to keep our physical health in a good place. You know, we know what foods to eat, what foods perhaps not to eat, what drinks to have, what drinks perhaps not to have, the exercise that we need to do, the sleep, the rest, the nutrition that we need in our lives. But what about mental health? You know, do we know what to do to keep our mental health in a good place? It's probably not something that's spoken about so frequently and so often. So we have this sort of umbrella of health, and underneath it we have both physical health and mental health sitting underneath there. Quite often anything that affects our physical health will also affect our mental health, just because our minds and bodies have such a strong link, such a strong connection there as well. Also with our mental health, it's something that isn't necessarily fixed. It's something that is fluid. It's something that can change, again, just like our physical health does. You know, physically, we might have an injury, an ongoing injury, a pulled muscle perhaps that we did many years ago. It might flare up. We might have a week or two when that injury is quite bad and it stops us from doing things. We might have months that go by when the injury is pretty much non-existent, and we can go out for a run, we can walk, we can do all of that physical activity that we once did before, and things are really good. So if we think about that in terms of mental health, think of how our mental health, we can have those periods of time when it's good, when we're able to do all of these things that are on the screen in front of us. You know, we can deal with day-to-day life, stresses of day-to-day life really easily and really well. We can cope with those. But there might be times when it's harder to do such things. There might be times where we've gone through experiences, we've gone through a particular time of our life where it's affected our mental health, it's affected the way that we think, it's affected our emotions, and it might also affect our behaviour. So it's fluid. Mental health can move. We don't just stick in one place all of the time. We all grow and develop as individuals, and obviously our mental health is affected by that as we grow and move forward in our life. Okay, so we're going to have a poll to do now, and I'm going to trust Tim to action this. We've just got a few questions for you guys to have a look at, to think about. So the first question that we have, that you should see on your screens in front of you, is how much did mental health cost UK workplaces in 2019? So we've got the answers there: 45 billion, 16 billion, or 25 billion. So if you want to click your answer. Okay, so we are getting a couple of answers there for 25 billion, one answer for 45 billion. Okay, so the correct answer for that question there is actually A, 45 billion. So whoever it was that clicked that one, you are correct. A staggering number there. It was actually a couple of years ago, there was, before that, so 2017, there was the most recent sort of study in this, which came out at 34.9 billion, I think it was, and obviously it's increased over those last 2 years to just under 45 billion now. So a really staggering cost. And when we're thinking about those costs, we want to think about, you know, sick days that people have taken, recruitment if staff have left, the cost of productivity loss, you know, deadlines not being met, different adjustments made at work for people who are experiencing mental health illnesses. There's a huge impact of this, and there's a huge impact of cost. And I suppose it gets us to think about, what culture do we have at work that do we support mental health? Is it not spoken about enough? Is there an awareness in the organisations that we work within? If there is, that's great. And how do we keep fostering that? How do we keep that in place and keep that going, so that people feel supported, and people feel they can have those really open conversations that help them get to the support that they need. Brilliant. If we could have the second question, please. Thanks, Tim. So how many cases of work-related stress, depression or anxiety were there in Great Britain in 2018, 2019? What do you guys think? Okay, thanks guys. So we've got a couple of people answering there for 602,000 and we've got another answer of 540,000, so going towards the sort of higher statistics there. Yeah, so the correct answer there is C, was 602,000 cases. Again, another really staggering figure, a really high figure there. And I suppose as well, just it's important for us to be mindful of the fact that with mental health statistics, we do have to take them with a bit of a pinch of salt, just because, you know, people that are off work with stress, depression or anxiety, they might not be truthful about the real reasons they're off work, just because we do still have that stigma and discrimination that's in place, particularly in some organisations. So again, just taking these with a pinch of salt, but still that's a really staggering number. So yeah, just being mindful of that. So question 3, please, Tim. Thank you. So 69% of UK line managers say that supporting employee wellbeing is a core skill, but how many have received mental health training? What do you guys think? Wow, so all three, 13% there. Thanks, guys. Yeah, and you are absolutely correct. Yeah, so 13%, a really, really low statistic there for actually how much of that mental health training has been taken. I know a couple of you on this webinar have had some mental health training. You know, it's also about how much of a priority is that in your workplace. You know, we've had courses that were supposed to be running this month with different organisations, and actually they can't go ahead because of the current situation and what's going on. There's so many other priorities that are in place at the moment in these organisations. You know, thinking about working within COVID restrictions, how do we manage the amount of staff that are off for childcare and all sorts of other things. It's a minefield out there at the moment, and actually what's quite ironic is that mental health training would probably be really, really important for this time because of the stresses that people are going through. But there's other things that come in the way. There's other things that take over and take precedence, and unfortunately it does fall by the wayside. But when we look at those figures, you know, from the previous couple of questions, actually it should be something that we are speaking about more. It should be something that we're getting our line managers trained in, because we have the ability then to support people with their mental health. So thinking now about there we go, how that deteriorating mental health might affect individuals in the workplace. So we've had that different definition there about mental health, and when it's good, you know, we can work fruitfully, we can be productive at work, we can cope with day-to-day stresses of life. What about when mental health is on that deteriorating end of that spectrum? What happens then in workplaces? And again, feel free to unmute yourselves, pop things in the chat. What's the impact that has on that individual in the workplace?
Guess there'll be lack of motivation, lack of drive, yeah, all those challenges that come along with that.
Absolutely, thanks, Adam. So a lack of motivation, the lack of drive, and yeah, the challenges that come along with that as well. Yeah, and the bigger impact of that, isn't it? You know, not just on an individual level, but a wider perspective. What is that impact? Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, with those sort of typical sort of signs and symptoms. Oops, sorry, I can see somebody's popped something in the chat, but it won't let me view it. Thanks, Tim.
There's a couple there. I think Sarah's mentioned lack of concentration, motivation, and productivity, and Vicky has mentioned presenteeism and absenteeism. Thanks for that. Just tongue twister there, Vicky. Appreciate that. From my perspective, I think there's also a knock-on effect to other people in the workplace as well, as how they might that how they're feeling may impact the other people in the team as well. So that's what we've got so far.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So you're all spot on there, and well said, Tim, with the absentees and presentees, and you've got it correct. Well done. Yeah, and you're all right. Absolutely. It's not just that individual impact, is it? There's such a wider impact from there as well. So just to go over some of those things, that absenteeism, you know, if people are off on unexplained absences, or they're having repeated absences, or they're turning up to work late, or they're taking extra breaks and not coming back from breaks, you know, quite often, especially if we're in quite a stressful environment, it's easy to respond off the cuff. What's going on? You know, going in organs blazing, perhaps. If that, you know, that might be somebody's style, but actually we need to think about the bigger picture. What is it that's contributing to that person having so many absences? You know, if they're saying that they're having this repeated stomach bug, what is it? What's causing that? Is it something else? Is that an excuse for something else that's going on for that person? And I suppose from a leader and a manager's perspective, it's how you have those conversations. It's how you foster that environment of having that open door policy, you know, being there for your staff, offering that support, and letting people know that they can get that support from you and within the organisation if that's something that you offer as well. So yeah, absolutely, we have that absenteeism. Presenteeism as well is quite a new sort of buzzword in sort of mental health in the workplace. This is all about when people are showing up to work physically, but mentally they're not engaged, so they're having that lack of ability to contribute so much as they used to, perhaps. It might also be that they are, you know, overworking, so they're firing off emails at all sorts of hours of the day. You know, we all know that we need to have a work-life balance. We need to be able to switch off from work to be, you know, that's supportive for our mental health in itself. So if we're recognizing that people aren't quite doing that, again, that's something that we can have a conversation around. We will get to some slides on how to have these conversations, by the way, as well. So yeah, that absenteeism, that presenteeism. Again, it might be performance, as we mentioned as well. So that inability to perhaps perform as well as they could. Lots of signs and symptoms in mental health, particularly in depression and anxiety, are things like a lack of concentration, memory problems, social withdrawal. So all of those things are obviously going to have an impact on performance. It might be that their conduct changes as well. So they might lack professionalism. They might be unable to manage their emotions as effectively as they once did. This might then cause problems, you know, with client conversations, with conversations with other members of staff, putting in complaints about people, those sorts of things. They might also be sort of warning signs for you as a manager and leader. Their communication skills might drop off point as well, or organisation skills as well. And also something that I'm not sure if we mentioned, but also accidents or near misses. So, you know, obviously with that lack of concentration, that lack of focus, somebody might actually forget to do a particular safety procedure. You know, if you've got a shop floor, it might be that people are lacking their own personal safety just because it's not so much of a priority if somebody's struggling mentally. So those sorts of things as well, we need to think about the bigger picture and what's causing that behaviour for that person as well. So also just to sort of touch on the stigma and discrimination here as well. Hopefully you guys work in organisations where there is support and there is a supportive outlook around mental health. I'm just going to share with you a bit of a story about a man called Peter. This is not based on any true scenario, by the way, guys, so I'm not sort of breaking confidentiality here, but just to give an idea of how this might present itself in the workplace. So Peter has to go off work with a back injury. This particular back injury means that he has to spend some time in hospital. When he's in hospital, he doesn't receive any flowers, any cards, any gifts from people to show that he's on their mind. He doesn't receive any conversations from his work colleagues or his boss. When he comes out of work, he goes back home. His partner is telling him that he's not pulling his weight around the house anymore. He's not looking after the kids as well as he was beforehand, and there's some tension there in the home. When he goes back to work, he notices that people are having sort of passive aggressive conversations with him about his back injury and how significant it's been. He has a conversation with his boss, and his boss tells him that he's handed the majority of his responsibilities to somebody else within the team without having a conversation with him about doing that. We'll leave that story there. It's just a bit of a background to get you to think about what stigma and discrimination was in place within that particular story. What things did you hear then that you think perhaps could have been dealt with differently? And again, just use your chat function, or feel free to unmute if you prefer.
I guess, you know, he's obviously going to feel that he's not valued to the business because they've just kind of pushed him to one side while he's been absent, and he's almost a tool to do a job rather than a valued member of staff. Obviously, moving his workload without consultation as well as, you know, going to make him feel devalued as well.
Thanks, Adam. Absolutely. So, yeah, lots of feelings there of not feeling valued, not having being involved in those conversations about his responsibilities and what he can and can't do. Absolutely. And not feeling supported. There's that massive lack of support there, isn't there? And also we've got that home life sort of issues there, some sort of issues at home, in the home. So how does that sort of fall into work as well? Tim?
Yeah, I was just going to add that it would seem that there's a lack of understanding or appreciation of the link between a physical injury and how that might actually affect the mental health of the person. There's a complete disregard for that, both in his case at home and at work, which, you know, I imagine would be pretty taxing. Sarah's just added in around rejection, a sense of rejection as well, again in both parts of his life. So yeah, pretty difficult for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks guys, thanks for that contribution as well, Sarah. Absolutely. So that rejection, isn't there, and I think that's a really valid point as well, Tim, about the impact then of the mental side of things, you know, how he thinks and how he feels because he's been off for a physical health injury, you know, physical injury. There is such a strong link between the two, isn't there? Absolutely. So there's ways to handle this. You know, if we know that somebody's been off work, perhaps for either a physical health issue or a mental health issue, how do we help them feel supported? How do we keep that contact with them whilst they're off work? When they come back to work, obviously we need a full sort of return to work conversation. What adjustments need to be made? Get them to speak about what they want to happen, you know, what would help them, what would be supportive for them, just so that you're that really constant supportive person in their life at work, that they know they can have a conversation with, they know they can speak to about, you know, how they do their best at work. You know, we quite often think about work-related stress and poor mental health at work, but actually there's also a lot of positives that can come from work. If somebody's experiencing poor mental health, work can be their constant, you know, it can be their distraction, it can be their full focus. It can bring a lot of positive things to somebody if they're experiencing poor mental health as well. So it's important to recognise that and think about how we can help that person achieve those things. So in terms of your responsibilities, in terms of things that you can do differently, perhaps, think about how you promote that awareness at work. Think about how you promote the awareness of mental health in the workplace, how you have conversations about mental health in the workplace. Think about the language that you use, be mindful of the language that you use to make sure that it's neutral, that it's positive, that it's encouraging, it's supportive, all of those sorts of things. And understand the support that you have in work and the support that's outside of work. And we'll come on to that in the next couple of slides as well. So we'll now think about what could impact mental health from a work perspective and also from outside of a work perspective. So we'll just think about the relationship between stress and mental health here. So how stress impacts mental health particularly. We can have work-related stress, we can have stress outside of work, and all of these things will impact that person's ability to focus, to concentrate, you know, to do their best in their day-to-day jobs at work and their day-to-day life. If somebody's experiencing intense amount of stress for a long period of time, that might then make them vulnerable to experiencing poor mental health. So as managers and leaders, if we know that there's people on our team that are experiencing stressful events, either at work or outside of work, again, it's thinking about how we put in that extra bit of support to make sure that person's okay, to make sure that that person's got everything they possibly need as they're going through those tricky times. If somebody is in recovery from a mental health issue as well, and they're experiencing stress on top of that, that then might make them feel vulnerable to experiencing some signs and symptoms again. So again, it's just checking in with them. It's getting them to be aware of the support that they have. You know, is it the GP that they go to? Have they got a counsellor or a therapist, somebody that they go to for support? Just helping them be aware of what support options, what treatment options they have, and how they keep on with those things. So we've got things outside of work, we've got personal things that might cause stress. What signs of stress do we think we have? So I suppose stress affects us emotionally, physically, and behaviourally. What things might we notice in our colleagues, in the people that we work with, that might indicate to us that they're feeling stressed? And again, just pop it in the chat box.
There might be a sense of withdrawal, so they're not actually normally they're quite open and engaging, but they might not be saying anything. They might just be focusing. Or another one could be they're rushing, so the opposite. They're constantly on the go, and there's obvious signs that which is different from normal. Any change really may be a signal.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Absolutely. So it could be that they withdraw from what's going on around them. Could be that they're kind of taking everything on the go, just constantly on the go from one thing to another. That sounds like me when I'm stressed. We all do things differently, don't we? Absolutely. We've got some bits in the chat there as well, Tim.
Yes, Sarah's mentioned agitated, distracted, less attentive than usual. She must be tapping into my own mental health with that list. Lack of focus, Adam's added in there as well. So yeah, I think all good ones.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, from that sort of mental state, unable to concentrate, things seem quite speeded up, don't they? Absolutely. Agitated as well. And we might notice that in people's body language, in their speech, in the way that they conduct themselves, a whole host of those sorts of things there. Absolutely. Yeah, so and we all have what I call a stress signature. So we all have a different way of showing our stress, of experiencing stress. For me, I quite often take on thousands of things to do and think I can tackle the world, and I usually can't. I might get quite snappy with people, quite emotional as well. I might also become quite withdrawn. I'm usually quite a sociable person, but if I'm really stressed, I tend to want to just retreat and just be on my own. But for others, it might be that they go the other way. So again, it's really individual to us how we experience stress. And if you're anything like me, it might not be until somebody else says, Jess, what's going on? Are you okay? Things seem to have speeded up recently. That's that point when I actually start to go, oh, actually, yeah, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed with everything at the moment. So it's really good for us to be able to spot those signs in other people, spot those symptoms, and actually just repeat that back to them and just say, I've noticed that you're taking on lots of work at the moment, or I've noticed that you've been cancelling plans recently with your friends, which is really unlike you. Just wanted to check that you're okay. Just wanted to check in with you and have a chat with you, and just see if there's anything that I can help you with. So that might be all it takes. That might be all we need to do with another person to help them just to start to feel that extra bit of support. And you know, getting them to think about what it is that's crowding their mind, what it is that's going on up there. They might want to write things down, they might want to journal some things out, they might want to draw some things out on paper. Sometimes it's easier to draw than it is to write. So just get that person to explore what's going on for them. They might want to do it just on their own individually. If they don't want to speak about it to somebody else, that's okay. Just get them to explore what's going on for them there and then. So again, just thinking of what you guys can do as managers and leaders. Are there any techniques or any ways that you guys manage your own stress, or how you manage stress at work that you perhaps share with your teams, or anything that you want to share with us now that you do?
I've got one I'm happy to share, and on the other side of my computer, and this came out of some coaching sessions that I was an attendee, and the expression is to pull your head in, which serves two purposes. One is if I'm having negative thoughts or going down a narrative which is not necessarily positive, is to stop and think of that quote. So just above my camera, it sits there, so I see it regularly. Or whenever I am snapping, or wherever I feel myself getting agitated, it serves a dual purpose. And I must admit, it works very well for me. Might not work for anyone else, but it certainly works for me. Vicky's just mentioned going for a walk. There's something that's great value to her.
Excellent, thanks. That's brilliant. Yeah, there's lots of little techniques that we can do. I love that, having a bit of an affirmation, perhaps something just to remind yourself with. And I think mine is, if it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't spend 5 minutes thinking about it. That always helps me. You know, if I'm stressing about those things that actually, in the grand scheme of life, are not that big of a deal. Just reminding myself that if it's not going to matter in 5 years, then I can let it go. Yeah, brilliant. And love walks, love fresh air, getting out there, absolutely. My partner, as he's been working from home, he's been going for walking meetings with his team. So they've all arranged that, you know, if they've got a team call at 12 o'clock, they'll go out for a walk and they'll walk and talk through their meeting, which he's found really, really useful. You know, I think over the last sort of 10 months, however long this has been going on for, it feels like 10 years, but we've had such a focus on doing these really useful mental well-being activities, whether it's walking or getting fresh air or exercise and all those sorts of things. And if we can combine that within our working day, I think that's a really nice way to just break things up a little bit. I'm all for walking and talking. There's something magical that happens when we walk and talk. Something about moving helps us to think more freely as well. So it can also be quite a useful time to actually get some new ideas as well. Excellent. So yeah, think about how you demonstrate those. Think about how you model some of those stress management techniques. You might want to share them with your staff. You might want to share some things that you do that help you or that help other people. Absolutely. So also just to touch on here a little bit around the risk factors that we might have in place for mental health as well. So there are certain things that pose more of a risk to putting people into a position where they might be more vulnerable to experiencing poor mental health. From a workplace perspective, that might be things such as if they've just changed jobs. It might be, in fact, let's pop these on the next slide. You'll see on the far column on the right there, it might be that they've started a new job. It might be that they've taken on a new promotion or something where their workload has increased, or they've got new responsibilities. They might have poor relationships with their colleagues or with their managers. It could be redundancy, or sort of the fear of facing redundancy, which I know at the moment is quite a big significant thing for many different people. So, and there's the other columns that we've got on here: life changes, emotional, physical, environmental sources of stress. These are all things that we might go through. We might go through multiple of these things at the same time. But again, just as a manager, as a leader, if you know that there's members of your team that are experiencing these things, how do you give that extra level of support? How do you make sure that you've got those weekly check-ins, those conversations where they can come and speak to you about what's going on? And if it's not you that they feel comfortable talking to, who do they have for support, whether it's at work or outside of work? Because we might not be the right person to speak to them. So we need to make sure that there is somebody that they can speak to and work with. Okay, so we're now going to think about how do we identify those people that might need that extra bit of support. So we've got some common signs and symptoms of poor mental health on the left-hand side here. A lot of these are sort of associated with depression, with anxiety as well, just because they're the most commonly experienced forms of mental health, particularly at work. There are obviously other mental health issues that people can experience. We don't really have the time to cover all of those today, unfortunately. So we'll just go with some of these. These are the things that we might want to pick up in the workplace. So extremes of emotion, you know, being unable to manage emotions effectively, appearing silent, withdrawn or distracted. We're doing lots more Zoom sessions, lots more video calls. It might be that somebody is consistently not appearing on camera, or not contributing on those video calls. It's always worth exploring that. It might just be that they just don't want to show what's going on in their house. Perhaps it could be all sorts of kind of reasons, kids running in and out perhaps, or cats walking across laptops, or whatever it might be. But it's always important to just ask those questions and just figure that out with that person, just to check if it's anything else. Memory loss, so forgetting that they've got things in the calendar. Tearfulness, if they're getting upset about things that they usually were quite resilient about. Body language, we can always tell quite a lot about what's going on with somebody with their body language. Quite often if I ask a question and somebody responds, but their body language is saying something different to their words, I always find that's quite a big indicator. So for example, if I've asked somebody, do you understand what I've just said? Is that okay for you to go away and do? And if they go, yeah, that's fine. If they're saying that it's okay, but they're shaking their head, listen to the shake of the head, because that's probably going to tell us a little bit more about how that person's feeling. So always tune into somebody's body language. A lack of cooperation, they might be putting in complaints perhaps about people, productivity problems, as we've spoken about, the loss of morale as well, erratic timekeeping, again, as we've spoken about, and it might be overworking. It might be that they just want to overwork themselves just so that they can switch off from what's going on mentally for them. So what do we do then if we spot these in people? What things do we need to do? How do we act upon that? So we need to think about how we create an open space. How do we make sure that that person feels comfortable to speak to us? It might be that we suggest to go for a walk or meet in a coffee shop. It might be that we get a meeting room so that it's not in somebody's office where there might be distractions, etc., etc. Make sure it's a neutral space. How do we encourage those conversations? So again, that's how you lead, that's how you let people know that you're there for them. There's a wonderful activity, a resource that you can download on Mental Health First Aid England's website. It's called Take 10 Together, and it's all about how we put 10 minutes in each week to just catch up with our team. You could do this as a team meeting, or you could do it as a one-to-one. But you might schedule a Wednesday morning, 9 o'clock till 9:10 when it's going to be fairly quiet. Just having those 10 minutes, asking that person how they are. If they do say they're feeling a bit stressed at the moment, then you might want to ask questions such as, how long have you been feeling this way? Is there anything at work that's contributing to this? Who do you have that can support you? Also ask them, what you can do to help them feel better in this situation as well. So there's loads of really, really good questions that we can ask there. Knowing where to signpost our staff. So if you do have any places at work that they can go to, they can reach support, think about what they are, how you signpost them there. Demonstrate that empathy. Sitting and listening to somebody can make a massive difference to what's going on for that person. Look to understand that person, so ask questions, explore how they're feeling with them so that you understand, and ensure that those support options are available. So in terms of support options, the things that we have workplace support. So we have things like employee assistance programs, if you might have one of those in place. You might have occupational health. Always have a chat with HR just to figure out these a little bit more and see what's in place. If you're going to guide somebody to the employee assistance program but you don't know anything about it, it's always good to just figure out a little bit more about what it is, just so that you've got that information to give to that person there and then. So see what you've already got at work. Outside of work, when you start to research the support for mental health out there, you will soon find that there is lots and lots of stuff that's out there to help people. We've got loads of great charities in the UK. We've got Mind, Samaritans, Rethink Mental Health. We've got the Calm Zone, NHS website's really good as well. Loads of really, really effective supports that are out there for people. So have an explore as to what's out there that you can help people with. On the Mind website, I think we've got this in a link, haven't we, Tim? That we can pop in the chat. On the Mind website, they've actually got wellness action plans that you can use at work, that you can complete with your staff, just to help them think about their wellness at work. Tim?
Yes, I've just dropped those links into the chat function, so feel free to click on those at your earliest convenience.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and the other link that's in there, that's just about supporting staff through COVID, so furlough and all sorts of things around there. So with a mental health perspective, so how you can support your staff's mental health around those. There's a couple of things that you might want to look at as well. So there's something called the 10 Keys to Happier Living by Action for Happiness. This is brilliant. There's loads of different suggestions and tips on there how we can practice these 10 keys of happier living to make sure that we are doing things throughout our day, throughout our week to keep us happy. And the 5 ways of well-being, which you might have heard of too. They're really, really good. Things that you might want to share in a team meeting. You might set one as a weekly activity. So you might set one of the 10 keys of happier living as a weekly focus or a monthly focus for your staff. If you head over to Action for Happiness's website, they have monthly calendars with little things to do each day. So again, you can share those with your team, with your staff. And then general support, so things that you can do differently. So providing staff with this information on who they can support, you know, particularly going through this lockdown number, whatever it is. You know, think about just sending out an email perhaps to people of different places that they can go to if they need that mental health support or if they're feeling stressed with things. It's just a really good way to check in with people and know that you've given that bit of support for them. Think about those weekly check-ins that take 10 together. How do you include mental health conversations into your appraisals or your one-to-ones? Think about how you might have those conversations too. And how you make adjustments for those who have been off with their mental health. You know, is it that they need to leave earlier on a Wednesday for a therapy session, or you know, their workload needs to be distributed to other people? What things can you help that person with? And it's just having those conversations with them about what they would find really useful at that time there as well. Okay, so just to summarise, so learn about those signs and symptoms of poor mental health. I've only covered a very, very light scattering of signs and symptoms here today. Obviously, feel free to go to the NHS website to have a look at what other signs and symptoms there are of different mental health illnesses, if you just want to get that bit of extra information. Promote positive mental well-being as a leader and manager. So again, think about how you model some of this stuff, how you promote awareness, how you help staff understand that you're there to listen and support them if they need it. Raise your awareness around mental health. So I've given you a few different resources that you can have a look into there. Recognise the support that you have available at work, inside of work, outside of work. We've got those links for you there as well. And then finally, we've got helping others to access that support. So even if it's just signposting people to read up on something, or giving them a phone number to ring for one of those charities, that is such great help that you guys can provide for your staff, for your teams there as well. Okay, I think I've covered everything on that slide, on those previous slides. Tim, is there anything that you want to add to those?
No, that's it. I think that's a great summary. So thank you, Jess. Right, if you just flick to the next slide for us, Jess, that would be great. We have a leadership development program that we run, and the first session is kicking off in later this month, which is around this particular topic, managing mental health. So feel free to join us. We run 4 sessions. It's going to be done virtually through this platform. It's on the 28th of January, 3-hour sessions starting at 10 a.m. So they'll run over a 4-week period, and you can either do that session on its own, or you can do it as part of the wider leadership development program. If you did want to do that, I'll just drop in you contact us via our webpage, but also drop in my personal email address. So if you wanted some further information or had some interest for yourselves and or your people, I will throw in a discount today for those who attended the webinar. So I don't know, say 50 quid just off the top of my head. For those who attend the session, you can get that off. So worthwhile session. And we will also be running webinars once every month as well, free webinars such as this with different people, such as Jess and myself as well. So can I just say a big thank you to Jess who came along today, and I think you would all agree was added great value to this subject matter. So and Jess will be running the training sessions as well. So if you liked her style, which I'll be surprised if you didn't, then that's who you'll be getting, not me. So I'm sure that'll please you. And also thank you to yourselves for joining. I do appreciate you taking your time to come and join the session. We hope that it was of value to you. If you did want a copy of the slide deck, just let me know through that email address, or alternatively, I will be uploading the recording onto our website, so I can send you the link in due course if need be. So if you did want to share it with, or for your own, keep it for your own records, and or share it with other people who were unable to send, or you think they may get some value from it, then by all means do that. Okay, so that's, I guess, over to you guys. If you got any questions and answers, it's a great opportunity with Jess being with us. If you've got anything specific you wanted to get out of the session today that we haven't covered, or any questions that she's run through. So I'll open it up. Probably the best thing to do is come off mute if you can, given that we've got some issues with the chat function. So come off mute. If you've got any questions, now's the time.
So I don't think I've got any specific questions or anything, but no, that's been really useful. Thank you very much. It's definitely kind of open my eyes to bits that are out there and available. And I know, from our company's perspective, they've got the employee assistance programs and everything, but a lot of the stuff that's there seems to be kind of self-led. That this stuff is here, and as you kind of alluded to, Jessica, go and have a look and find out for yourself. And we as employees get told that, and I've kind of been quite vocal within our company that actually something such as this, it'd be nice to have a real person, because we're all spending more and more time in front of our computers, and that's not necessarily helping people's mental health either. So that's great. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks, Adam. Great. I'm glad you found it useful. Thank you.
I think that's a really good point. I think with any sort of sorry, David, any sort of learning, bear in mind that doing an hour webinars is not necessarily going to give you all the skills and techniques to be able to do it, especially on a topic such as this, which is so intangible. So it's quite difficult to actually identify. So I think any sort of further research and or development that you can do around this particular topic. And I'd love to hear that, Adam. You've got to have your sponsors in your business that are promoting this, because I think if there isn't, it'll just it just won't happen. So great. Sorry, David, jump in.
No, look, I was literally just going to echo what Adam said. We work together, and it's pretty much, yeah, exactly as he said. But I'd just like to say as well, apologies again for joining late. And from where I did join, I've made loads of notes, so I think I've found a lot of value in it, and I think I will be emailing you for the slide deck as well.
No problem.
Thanks, David.
Brilliant.
All
right. Anybody else, Vicky or Sarah, want to add anything before we close it off? Okay.
Can you hear me? Oh, yes, there you are.
Great. Thanks,
Just to say thanks. It was really, really useful, and I think it's sort of reassuring that this is something which is going to probably increase in relevance, and certainly in the long term. It will become more and more important, especially if people are to be encouraged to work from home wherever possible in the future. And I think a lot of companies are thinking that this may be, a way forward for them, which means it's going to become even more important and valuable to know that there is a resource and coping strategies to help colleagues through it. And I'm a great believer in, if there's negative energy in the office, take it out of the office, and that is something which is obviously been good to hear. So yeah, thank you very much. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Jess.
Oh, great. Thanks, Sarah. It's great to hear.
Brilliant. Well, dare I say it, this is going to be the first webinar you've been on for about 6 months. It's going to finish on time. So thank you.
I do try my best not to ramble too much.
That's right. So well done, Jess. I'll get you to run my time management course later in the year as well, I think. That's right. So thanks so much for joining, and just reach out if you want some further information.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Tim.
very
Thanks,
much.
Jess. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Take care.